Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Drums and Drams. My name's Cameron, and in today's video, I'm gonna do my best to answer the question of whether or not you should be hunting these brand new Elijah Craig toasted barrel, single barrel, barrel proof picks. They've been popping up all across the country in various liquor stores, picked by those stores or state agencies, online retailers, all sorts of different things. But I feel like all at once we've started to see these things dropping. 9, 10-ish years old are the ones that I've been seeing, with proof points ranging somewhere between like 115 up to maybe around 130-ish. So I have two examples here in front of me because I think for a video like this, answering this question is gonna be hard if I only have one data point, only one of these single barrels. So two is better than one. Hopefully between these two barrels, nosing and tasting them today very quickly. I'm gonna try to keep this video as short as I can. Hopefully I can gather enough of an idea about these two different profiles to give you an idea of whether or not you're the kind of person that might want to hunt these, maybe if you shouldn't hunt them, or maybe if nobody should hunt them, if they're really not that good. Price points on these are around $100, so they're definitely not cheap. But it is Elijah Craig, it is decently aged Heaven Hill bourbon, or maybe even well-aged Heaven Hill bourbon at these 9 and 10-year-old age statements that I've been seeing. Let me know in the comment section if you guys are seeing anything above that or higher proof, maybe even over 130. Let me know what you're seeing out there in your markets. But let's get down to it now. Very quickly, I wanna say thank you to two very important Patreon members, Whiskey Rambler and James G, for sending these bottles my way. I haven't seen these pop up in Ohio yet, so I had to kind of outsource this, and so I appreciate you guys for hooking me up with these. So now let's get on to it. We're gonna start with the younger of the two. This is 9 years old, about 121-ish proof, and this is selected by the Virginia State ABC system. So let's check this out on the nose and see what we get. All right, so glass one is a very, very dark profile. And it's worth calling out that the colors of these whiskeys, they are very, very dark colors, right? And that's to be expected when you put these into toasted barrels. But the profile on this glass is very dark. It's chocolatey, but it's more of a bittersweet type chocolate. It has a little bit of a note that I don't love, and it's a note that kind of turns me off of both toasted and double oaked products. That is this almost rubbery, barbecue, smoky kind of note, but the rubber aspect of that note is the thing that really turns me off. Now, some people don't ever pick up on this rubber note. It's, for me, prevalent on some Michter's toasted products, particularly the rye. It's also, prevalent on the Sagamore double oaked rye and some others out there as well. But I do pick it up here, and for those that never get that note, they typically will call it like a chocolate or like a more of a smoky type thing or more of a coffee type thing, but I kind of get this rubberiness. But with that said, this is a very dark profile. It smells like something that a double oaked or toasted barrel lover is going to really love, especially maybe even double oaked lovers, because I think this is a little darker than a typical toasted profile, which can be a little lighter, a little bit more almost creamy or buttercream-like in some ways. That's glass one on the nose. Now let's go to this second pick, which is about 128 proof, 10 years old, so 1 year older. And this is a Cox's and Evergreen pick, which is out of Kentucky. And this one, little higher age, little higher proof. Let's see how it differs on the nose. Yeah, so this one on the nose is actually more up my alley. This is a little sweeter, a little more vanilla on here, a little creamier. There's kind of this sweet cinnamon profile, so it's not as dark. It's not as bittersweet and heavy on the oak and on those chocolate and coffee notes. It's a little bit more lively, vibrant, a little bit more overtly spicy, which is sometimes not a great thing for me, but in this case, I'll take that overt spiciness over this very, very bittersweet kind of profile. So this is definitely more up my alley, and I think what this is showing me right away is that these profiles differ quite a bit with these single barrels. I'm not sure if they're using different, toast or char levels in these barrels for these picks, or if it's just purely the difference between age statements, rickhouse placement, barrel aging time, that kind of thing. I would be interested to find out more about this pick program to understand what these variables are. But I think at the very least, there's probably one of these single barrels for just about anybody out there, because I'm not a toasted or double oaked lover. I do appreciate this one on the nose, especially over this first glass. So I do think that there's probably a wide span and a wide range of profiles for different kinds of drinkers. So that's gonna inform my final call on this of whether or not you should be hunting them. But let's now taste glass A on the palate. Cheers. And just as the nose would suggest, that is a very dark and bitter kind of profile. It's It's extremely oaky, and not in a good aged Heaven Hill oak kind of way. It's in a forced, fresh lumber kind of way on this one. It's sawdusty on the palate. Yes, it does have all those dark notes, but now it's even starting to show some of those brighter oak notes as well. So to me, that one is just out of balance. It feels like it spent too long in that finishing barrel. And so I think if you cut that time in half, I'd be curious to see what this whiskey would be like. But as it stands now, at this proof point, it's a little lower proof, it's a little younger age, 121-ish, 9 years. That one is not really my jam, nose, or palate. I could see it being for someone. I could see it being for double oak lovers and toasted lovers, just like I said on the nose. So if you guys are that kind of a drinker, like if that's your profile, you're probably gonna like both of these, to be real with you. But for me, that one's not it. So let's go to Glass B now on the palate. Then we'll kind of debrief and draw some final conclusions at the end of the video. Cheers. Yeah, so Glass B is a total 180 from Glass A on the palate. This is much more balanced, and interestingly enough, it's a higher proof, but because it doesn't have as much of that forced oak influence in the profile, it actually feels like it drinks a little bit easier in some ways. It feels more balanced, almost a leaner, like more relaxed in some ways mid-palate. So there's more spice, but there's not as much barrel and not as much oak on this. So it's a strange, kind of dichotomy, like between these two, comparing them, to realize that this is higher proof. I think that might throw some people off in a lot of ways, but this is definitely more my profile. It's just got this balanced, almost butterscotch kind of profile to it. It's not old school dusty butterscotch, don't, get me wrong on that, but a little bit more of a I don't even want to say artificial butterscotch, but it's like a constructed butterscotch that they figured out how to make between the base whiskey and the finishing barrel. And they've done it pretty darn well in the case of, this particular pick. So hats off to Cox's, Evergreen, whatever the store's name is in Kentucky that did this pick. This is a really, really solid one. The balance of sweet cinnamon and butterscotch and these slightly brighter but more balanced notes, that goes a long way for me, somebody who's more of a purist when it comes to aged Kentucky bourbon, and I don't always prefer those toasted and double oak profiles. So now let's kind of draw a conclusion here. If you are somebody that likes typical toasted and double oak products, especially your Michter's double oak rye or toasted barrel rye rather, if you like that, if you like some of your like Peerless double oaked and Peerless toasted, I think, as well as maybe that Sagamore double oak rye that I mentioned earlier, if you're somebody that likes those profiles, you're gonna like pretty much all of these picks based on these two data points. This range, the range that these two barrels cover, is something that you're going to enjoy from front to back, I think. I don't see any problem with that. And so at this $100 price point, it's a buy all day. It's kind of like a buy on site thing. And if they start to become abundant in your area, then you might have to become picky and choosy about which ones you take, because if 6 different stores have them, you don't want to go out and spend $600 right away on these picks and try to find which one's better. At that point, if they'll let you sample those barrels, I think you should sample them and find the best ones. But if only one store in your area is going to get one of these barrels, and you're one of those people I'm talking about right now, you should absolutely just buy it on site, because I think you're going to love it. However, if you're somebody like me that maybe finds that rubber note in some toasted products, or maybe finds most double oaked things to be astringent, or a little too much of this brighter wood shop sawdust note, then I think you're gonna wanna be more discerning about this. General rule of thumb for you is going to be to pass on these products, especially at $100, which is gonna feel like a total ripoff if you get one that you don't like, which would be more like this Glass A, this first pick that we talked about today. But if you do have the chance to sample these based on this very limited data today, I would say go for the higher proof and the higher age. Surprise, surprise, just based on those stats alone. But that's totally that might not track or be able to be extrapolated past these 2 bottles. So at that point, I would just tell you, if you're more of a sensitive palate, more cautious person towards these kind of products, try before you buy every single time. If that store will not let you try that pick, I probably would just pass on it, unless you're willing to take the risk. If you trust their palate and they tell you it's not too over oaked, which they're probably gonna tell you regardless if they're a store trying to sell their barrel, try before you buy. Or maybe you take one risk one time and gamble on a barrel with a stat you know, a stat sheet like this, 128 and 10 years. But if you're burned on that one the first time, then I say, you know, if you can't try before you buy after that, then you're gonna wanna pass on all of these. So that's my recommendation. Should you hunt them? Yes and no. It just depends on the kind of whiskey drinker you are, but I don't think this is a profile that is going to appeal to all whiskey drinkers. I think it's going to appeal to a majority, let's say 2/3, because I think a lot of people like these toasted and double oak products, but I think there is a growing subset of people that I would align myself with who are not generally fans of this kind of whiskey, and so you're gonna wanna be more careful. So let me know if this video was helpful, guys. I wanted to keep it quick. It might've been a little lengthy, but I do apologize. Hit that like button. Comment down below what you think about this if you've tried any of these. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Check out the Patreon. That's gonna do it. Thank you again to James and Mr. Whiskey Rambler for hooking me up with these bottles. That's gonna do it. Cheers, and I'll see you soon here on Drums and Drams.